Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. This episode of Slam the Gavel is sponsored by CPS Protect Consulting Services. Child Protective Services cases are among the most frightening experiences any parent can endure. Don't face them alone. With urgent assist by CPS Protect, you get the peace of mind to raise your children as you see fit and the personalized assistance of their team of expert child welfare consultants. Former CPS investigators themselves right when you need it. Get started absolutely free at cpsprotect.com/register, and this is available in all 50 states. Also, go to the site, pleasedoyourjob.com. We need 2,000 more signatures to get a case reopened. That's pleasedoyourjob.com. I'm so happy and very proud to have Robert Garza onto my podcast. He will soon be featured in my book, Raised by These Wolves, Volume 2. Now, Robert Garza has dealt with 43 false accusations and spent $700,000 in court. And he also put a bill together within 6 months in the state of Texas, SB 718. And he did it very quickly as a pro se litigant representing himself. I welcome you, Robert Garza. How did you do all this? And how did all this happen?
Oh, thanks. Well, I wish it never would have happened,
Right.
but now that it has, we'll just try to make the best of it. So I went through, like you said, about well, now it's about 14 years of family court, still going through it. My kids are almost aged out. I have about 3 years left, and I'm done with this. But went through family court for about 10 years, faced all those false allegations, and every time I faced one, my ex did it by proxy with CPS, and then she would go get a protective order restraining order based on an open CPS investigation. Every time they would rule it out, but in the meantime, they took my parental right away on a precaution, which the courts shouldn't be able to do because they violate your Fifth Amendment right for due process. They violate your 14th Amendment right for care, custody, and control, but they do it anyway. And so we would ask for the time back every time they gave me the children back. Well, the judge is like, well, it's water under the bridge. Let's just move forward every time that this happened. So basically my ex was like, okay, I can start taking time away by doing this, and there's no repercussion for it. Because basically she went to a mandatory reporter, reported it to a mandatory reporter that was abusing the kids. They would report it, and then she would go get a protective order restraining order based on an open CPS investigation. 100% of the time, the court's going to allow that take away your parental right because of the precaution. So the judge finally got tired of me asking for my time back and said, okay, we're going to save it for final trial. That made me get to final trial to do this, but in the meantime, there was psych evals, home studies, updated home studies, psych evals. They play the game, you run the gamut, you have to jump through all these hoops. Now, I know how to shortcut the system now if anyone goes through this because I already went through it, and we help people every day for it. But so it took 10 years to get to final trial. And so we asked for the time back. The judge never even ruled on the subject, never even addressed it, even though we asked for it. And she got it wrong because she ruled on stuff that neither of us asked for, took over 100 days to rule, and that was the problem with today's court systems. And so instead of being in court, I took our children out of the court system because they've been in it since they were 1 and 3. They were 10 and 13, 14 at the time, and so I was done with it. So then we moved on to having a life outside of family court. And instead of taking the judge's decision and to a higher court and overturning it, it would have cost me another $50,000 to $100,000, and only did this for mine, right? Like I would have overturned it, no problem. I knew 100% I would, but instead I took our children out of court, moved forward, went to our state senator, Angela Paxton, showed her a bill that I created that basically changed may to shall, and then we tweaked it over a little bit more time, which came out that when somebody goes through family court and has their time taken away from them, when they return the child, they return the time to repair the parental bond that was broken in the process. It went through unanimously and bipartisan, and the first time. That was amazing.
Yeah,
So
that's like a miracle.
yeah. And then the governor at the end of it could have decided to either let the bill go through and not sign it, and it would have passed, or he could have vetoed it, or which he did, he signed off on it. And the amazing part is it was on Father's Day,
Oh,
and I got the news that he signed off on it on Father's Day. So it was an amazing gift to all parents out there and all fathers, so,
hmm.
and children.
Right, right. I mean, that's more than a coincidence. That was a gift from God.
It was 100%. The other thing that the bill does that a lot of people didn't realize, and I did this on purpose, was that when I was going through this, the biggest travesty to all this, also my kids and I, but the even bigger travesty is that through those 43 plus false allegations, they used CPS and wasted their resources on children that could have been being investigated that were really being hurt for false
Right.
allegations. Now, at the same time, they were running the district attorney's office resources also because of the egregiousness of the allegation. So there was a CPS in family court running their investigation and another investigation because of the accusations in criminal court by the district attorney's office. So it wasted two resources and the court system, which was three resources
Oh,
for false allegations. This bill, time taken, time back, is actually an atomic bomb because it gives back those resources to the court system, to CPS, and to the criminal system just by deterring the use of an allegation, of a
mhm.
false allegation.
And the taxpayers have suffered
Right.
through all of these false accusations that she wielded and weaponized against you. There has to be a penalty for these false accusations. I don't want to go off on another topic, but shouldn't she be penalized for that in some way?
I believe so, but I think in the end, God is our biggest judgment, and she will be judged on a higher level than any of us could have ever judged her. The other thing with it is that as far as the the false allegations and people being penalized for it, I've already talked to a lot of legislators. I went to 40 something states, testified in front of judiciary committees and everything. And there's no legislator that I spoke to yet that will penalize someone. And here's the reason why is because when, let's just say my neighbor's abusing their kids, or I think that they're abusing their kids, and I'm not sure about it. And so if I don't make a CPS report because there's a penalty like jail time or a $500 fine or $1,000 fine for a false allegation when it comes to CPS, then if I don't make that call and that child gets hurt or lives for the next 18 years in that home because I didn't make that call, no legislator wants to take away someone's ability to make an accusation if that child's being hurt and be penalized for it. Does that make sense? So they don't ever want to get behind a law that will take away someone from reporting a child being hurt based on that they may be penalized for it.
Why not eliminate CPS altogether and just utilize the police and give them more training on how to deal with custodial interference as well as these false accusations?
Yep. And I totally agree. I think there should be less government, involvement in our children's lives. The best person to raise a child is their parents. And I agree with you. But, and I don't know if you know the statistic, but there's only 15 to 18% of all CPS investigations that are, what's it called? Reason to believe, which means
Right.
they're found in evidence. That means the rest of them are a bunch of BS or false allegations or used in custody battles. Most of these things are used in custody battles. People know
Mhm.
that. And CPS, the first thing that they ask when you go to report something, they say, okay, the family that you're reporting, are they in a custody battle or in family court? That is the first question they ask for that reason. So in my case, I took the judge's discretion away in all of Texas with this time taken, time back bill. because my judge abused their discretion. And the sad part is, if judges would be more in the middle, there wouldn't be so many advocates like us. But because it's so one-sided, and in Texas, 93% of all parents, women, are the ones that get primary custody in Texas 93% of the time. If that was a black and white issue and you say, okay, if whites get primary custody over African Americans or whatever, if it was a different issue besides a parental issue, everyone would be up in arms.
So you were cleared of all these 43 allegations. I was cleared of my 2. So I'm wondering, just throwing this out there, since we were cleared, we should be returned all our attorney fees that this person lodged against us.
Correct. Now, you can ask for those, but it's going to cost you thousands of dollars more. The judge has the discretion, and that is the problem. And so we're trying to be creative with all these new bills. And I tell everybody, if you're listening to this podcast, then more than likely you're in the middle of this, you're an advocate, whatever. Do not approach your state legislator with a problem unless you have a solution. I'm telling you this because you're emotionally throwing up on them your problems, but you don't have a solution, and they won't have one for you either. And I guarantee you, as soon as you walk out that door, they're not even going to remember who you were. And so don't approach them unless you have a solution to the problem. And I know you want someone to hear it, and all of us advocates are the same. I guarantee it. And I wasn't ready to go talk to my state legislator when I was in the first, say, 2 to 3 years of this, because I was such an emotional wreck, not knowing it. I just wanted someone to hear something to get done. So I too was like you, but I didn't do it. And I was able to live through the process, go through it almost like a caterpillar goes through a metamorphosis. But when you emerge from whatever you're going through, I guarantee you will be stronger, smarter, and a better parent for going through this when you do get your kids back.
Right. There's a lot of good, fit, loving mothers and fathers who are just getting their kids taken away based on these silver bullet false accusations. And this has to stop, because I would think, well, I think you've probably heard that I would like to see family court abolished. I don't know the way, because these judges are the wild, wild west. And it just takes common sense. If you're running a custody trial and, oh, look, there's another false allegation. Oh, they're doing another false allegation, so mom or dad can't see their kids. It doesn't take much common sense, but what these judges are doing are dragging out these cases.
So I've thought about this, and I've actually even got to talk at a CLE class, which is continuing education for lawyers and judges, on the new bills. They were having it, and they invited me to speak on my bill. I was present there, and it was the most amazing thing. They actually asked me more questions, all these lawyers and judges, than the person putting on the CLE. That was the speaker. And it just dawned on me, after speaking to all these legislators and everything else, everybody has been trained by someone before them. And so they really don't know what they don't know. And when you go into a courtroom, you hear these attorneys talking about, oh, well, Smith versus Smith says that da 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 da. Basically, they're educating that judge that they know more than them, or they know what the laws are. And the sad part is, if your attorney doesn't respond with like another case law, or that's not right, or they misinterpreted the law because they didn't do their homework, you're at a disadvantage. And it's very sad that the world that we live in today, that we go in front of judges that don't even know half of what they're talking about, or maybe they do, but then they're letting these other attorneys come in or block evidence or whatever else. So the best thing to do is just stay out of family court. But if you're thrown in there, you're going to have to learn very fast criminal and civil, because most attorneys don't know both.
Mhm.
And it's just a sad process.
Definitely, I encourage everyone not to go in there because you're just handing over your kids' college tuition and other things that you could possibly help your kids with in the future. And the thing was that these judges are not looking at any of the evidence any of the parents are giving them. And I thought of something else too, because their clerks might say, well, maybe the judge doesn't need to even look at this. So they don't even show the judge. So it
Correct.
might not even be the judge's fault, but they're not doing their jobs in there.
They exclude evidence. How? Because of the procedures, and being a pro se litigant, be very careful because they will beat you on procedures. They will take your evidence out. They'll take it where you can't speak, you can't do anything, and beat you that way. You think you're going to go in there and get a fair shake. You're not going to unless you know all the rules of evidence and procedure and everything else.
Right. And I was going to ask you this, when you go in there and you know all this stuff and you're telling them, they call you even more crazy in court. As a pro se, you go in there and you know your case law and whatever you're presenting, then they call you crazy.
Correct. And if you just started this, I mean, I understand where you're at because they just took your kids away. You are probably in one of the deepest, darkest places that you could possibly be. And if you realize that, there's no way that you can be yourself and look anywhere normal going into a family court. So if you don't want to look crazy, definitely get counsel or at least therapy before a good therapist before you get in there. And
Right.
go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, like, even if you present yourself very professionally, also as like an attorney, and you present all this stuff and you know your stuff, they're still gonna call you crazy, even if you present well.
They are. Um,
But
in certain cases, as long as you can keep your cool, and believe me, it took me 14 years and $700,000 watching all of my attorneys fight for me to actually understand what goes on. Now, if you really want to know the court system and if you're really going to do it pro se, you need to go into those courtrooms, not your own judges or even your own judges. You can court watch. Go court watch. And I say, when you get hundreds of hours under you, then maybe you have an understanding of how this works. But if you don't have hundreds of hours of court watching for your own eyes, don't try it
oh,
unless you have to.
well, yeah,
If they leave you no choice.
right. A lot of people, they've run out of money, such as myself. I was swiping charge cards and I was irritating my current husband, but we got it sorted out and I had to go in there pro se. And I just watched the opposing attorney and how in his behaviors, and I was starting to mimic him, which was starting to embarrass him. And I just learned to live to irritate. I want all parents to know, don't throw in the towel. You want to live to irritate because believe me, I was in that dark place too. And I was thinking all sorts of things of just wanting to get out of here. But something came over me and said, live to irritate. And
I don't know about that. I
well,
mean, I
it
wouldn't do
worked.
that. You're fighting for your kids.
Right.
So
Right.
just be on your best behavior. You should mimic opposing counsel because if they're getting traction and they went to law school and you're able to mimic their gestures or their demeanor, stuff like that, okay, do it. If I mean, I get it, but you almost have to it's pay to play and
Right.
you're paying right now, and whether it's your time, your money, or your children's time with them, and so you better learn this game very fast.
Very fast, because I was fighting for what my children wanted, which was 50-50. Isn't it unusual that a 12 and 13-year-old would know the words 50-50 shared custody? It's like, I didn't teach them that. Who were they learning that from? But that's what they wanted, and that's what I was going in there to fight for them for, even to the point of going to Superior Court in Pennsylvania. So anyway, what do you do when the cards are stacked against you and it's rigged to begin with? This is why family court needs to go.
All right. So if you have a false allegation against you right now, or had one in the past, or you think one's going to happen in the future, the best thing that you can do, and a lot of attorneys don't know this because they go crazy, especially when there's sexual allegations or anything, or abuse or anything like that. They're like, oh, here we go. They don't really know how to fight it. The best thing you can do is train your attorney. Is that, let's just say you've been married for 6 years and now you're getting divorced and whatever. You say, look, for 6 years, I've never had CPS come to my home. I've never had the police called. If you can train your attorney on those two things to go into court and say to that judge, and there's no reason for this protective order, restraining order based on past history, and this is a false allegation being used against you. Now that they filed or you filed, now you're this monster, abuser, molester, your past history, but your attorney literally has to go in there. If my attorney would have went in there and just said those couple of few things, none of this would have ever happened. If they would have mentioned that I've never had any CPS or police in, 30 something years on this earth, you don't all of a sudden get a divorce and then all of a sudden you're this horrible person. That will shortcut a lot of people's stuff if they would just don't chase the rabbit trails, just spit out the facts. Yep.
Exactly, because I noticed, and when I've talked to other parents, as soon as they get hauled into this, court, this alleged family court, whatever this is, the opposing attorney will call out, he or she's crazy and he or she is alienating the kids from me. So then somehow they take the ball and they run with that. Then what do you do?
So first of all, the alienation thing has been overused, and a lot of judges refrain from it because a lot of people use it wrong. If someone is bad mouthing them, if the other parent is bad mouthing you to the children, then that's called bad mouthing.
Right.
Don't say that they're alienating me. Only use that word if the children are rejecting you. That is the only time that you are alienated, is if the children are fearful of coming to your home. We understand it's because of the bad mouthing, or it's because of the gatekeeping, which they're, keeping the children from you, or not letting you have your possession time and stuff like that. There's names for these behaviors, but only use alienation if the children are rejecting you.
They're overusing it and they're really abusing the term. It's not pseudoscience. It does exist. I'm, alienated myself. The thing is that these attorneys should be held accountable for child psychological abuse themselves by your attorney. With them making this up, destroying and torpedoing the case even before it begins. I don't know why attorneys aren't reporting other attorneys. I know this is a $50 billion a year business. I get all that and all these incentives.
Well, just think of them as a union, right? I mean, they're a part of a union, and then you're reporting to the union about, which is the state board of whatever state, about their labor people. So, I mean, good luck trying to get something done. Now, you need to, I keep telling people this all the time, you need to focus your fight. So think of it like you're on a football field and your children is the target at the end. There's a target on the field goal, and you have a shotgun and a sniper rifle. If you take that shotgun, no matter how many times you shoot, you're not going to hit the target because you're too busy fighting the amicus attorney. You're fighting the opposing counsel. You're fighting the psych eval, the home study, the parent facilitator, the judge. You're fighting all these people. You need to focus what your goal is and ignore the noise and get that rifle and just go straight for what you need to focus your target on your target and hit and get your kid back. Forget all the noise. You're going to have all these people in your ear and whatever else. Just remember what the focus is of your child. Now, when you're talking about an alienated child, I was alienated too, and still feeling all the effects of it because of over 14 years of this going on. When my children did come back after being separated for a 3-month period, they were alienated for sure. They didn't want to come, crying, whatever. Well, after I got them, I took them to the zoo, and I went to a place to where we had good memories at. I didn't say a word to them. We went to the zoo. We went to some other places. By the time we left the zoo, one was hanging on my arm and the other one was on my back.
Oh.
And they were like, "Oh, don't you remember the camel and the the lions and blah blah blah." Their own memories flooded and rewrote over the alienation. The more you talk about the other person, the more you're going to be alienated from your children. So don't try to explain it to them. Just show them that you're not this monster or whatever else. If they come over and they say you're this, you're that, alienated children, and I came up with this quote. So alienate, what was it? The alienator's megaphone is the child's mouth. When you realize that, whatever's coming out of your child's mouth is not really them. They're repeating what they're hearing or their fears or whatever. So all you can do if they bring something up is just be like, "Oh, I remember it differently," and move on. Don't address a lot of the stuff. Just do your normal things and move on. The more you address it, the worse the alienation will stick, because those children, here's the other thing, is those children are looking to solidify whatever the alienator had put in their head. So if they say you're abusive, they're looking at you. If you raise your voice, you are screwed. If you slam or if you put a bottle down too fast or too hard and it makes noise, they think you're aggressive. I mean, be very careful and do just the opposite of what is being said to those children.
Right. It's like you've got to walk on eggshells. This is horrible to say.
Yeah, it's sad. But if you do those things, you'll get through this process. Know it's just a game. They have you jumping through these hoops. You can, depending on what you file and what you do, you can get past this stuff. Oh, one more thing about the fighting these false allegations. Whenever somebody, and I just helped a parent do this. So whenever you're fighting these false allegations, more than likely they're going to get a restraining order or a protective order based on an affidavit. That affidavit, if you can prove that it was false somehow, then don't worry about jumping through the hoops, even if they've already have you doing home studies, psych evals, whatever, by the time that CPS finished their investigation. You can go back and tell your attorney to vacate that order. And I'm not an attorney, so anything I say is just my opinion.
Same.
I put that in there. Yeah. So you can have your attorney go in there and vacate that order based on a false affidavit. In fighting that, you have now focused on your children again, instead of using that shotgun and trying to fight the psych eval, the home study, and going through these hoops. You pull yourself back from that game on where it originated from, and now you have proof because the CPS allegations rolled out. That's how this whole game started. Pull yourself back out of that game.
I've been talking to other parents that slowly find out that their own attorney was involved in the rigging of the case.
Yeah.
And I know you've talked to parents as well. This is really bad. This is family court needs to go, as I've said before. But I don't know how we stop even the third-party parasites, the guardian ad litems, the attorney for child, whatever state wants to call them. But these individuals need to go as well.
Yeah. So they do backdoor deals. They do ex parte communications. They do all this stuff all the time. The crazy part is now it's being brought to light because of all the advocates. We even have in Texas, Texas for Judicial Accountability, Jennifer Lundy. She used to work for the court system. And so because of that, you have these people that have been involved and see the stuff that happened every day. She used to work for a senator also. So that all this stuff is being brought to light now. And so because of it, I think things are about to start changing. You're going to see a big pushback on 50-50. I'm about to introduce a bill with my state senator. The new start is at equality.
Mhm.
We're not going to put all this crazy stuff in there. It's going to be literally have to live within 20 to 25 miles of your ex, be fit, willing, and able. That is it. Now, I know people want presumption of this, da 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 that. I get it, but you have to move that baton and hand it off to the next advocate. But you need to keep moving it forward. In Texas, it's not moved forward in the last 3 sessions. And so we need that to just get little bits here and there when you can. You're not going to ever get one full big blown whatever. Even in my bill, I
Mhm.
wanted my bill to say all investigative agencies versus CPS, but I wanted to stop the bleeding. And hopefully now those resources will return to CPS and the court system and everything by, deterring that someone to make a false allegation. But my bill doesn't stop someone from making a real allegation. And that's why it was such a pretty bill.
Mhm. Yeah, that's fascinating. How long does it take you to put these bills together?
Well, that was 13 years in the making because I had to live it to go through it.
Right,
And
right.
same thing that I was talking to you before we went on air, but you know, also living through interference with child custody. You don't know it until you go through it, you hear about it, and then when you go through it without going through a false allegation, just someone interfering with your child custody, then you have to figure out, okay, how do I fight this on a civil level? And
Mhm.
then how do I fight this on, sorry, there's some loud birds here.
That's okay.
Um, how do you fight this on a civil level and on a criminal level at the same time? Now, if you think about it like a false allegation that's egregious. And so you're being investigated by the family court and by the criminal court at the same time. That's the same way that this 25.03 in Texas interference with child custody is handled too. You can file with a police officer and it's going to go through to a police officer. You have to make the police officer take that report and tell him you want to file for 25.03, which is interference with child custody. Once he does that, you can't just let it go and think that they're going to do their job. You literally have to call these people every week and ask, where's it at? Where's it at on this? Did it go to, the next level? Who has it now? What's their phone number? Call them.
Mhm.
If you can actually see that through, they'll actually do it, but you have to stay on them. They're not going to do your job for you. You
Right,
literally have to stay on them.
right. God helps those who help themselves. And I know parents are tired. I know they're exhausted from everything. They're emotionally exhausted and financially exhausted. But we, as advocates, have to encourage them to keep going and make these phone calls and see these things through.
Yes. It's funny you mentioned advocacy. I have a quote that I came up with too. My advocacy is not for you. I'm sorry. My advocacy is not because of you, it's for you.
Mhm.
And I'm going to let that sink in to whoever heard it. But in the long run, it's for my ex, my kids, your kids, everyone else. You're not doing it for yourself. My bill, when I did my bill, I could have retroed my bill and got 3.5 years back with my children.
Mhm.
I didn't do it for that. I did it for everyone coming after me and to unstop the court system. And that was my main concern, to stop the false allegations, to stop the court system from being stopped up and being able to run efficiently and do what they're supposed to instead of investigating these false allegations or feeding into them.
Mhm.
And so I could have retroed it, but I didn't. And so I think in the long run, that's going to help because my bill went through unanimously. I think because of that also is because I didn't put something in there to stop up the court system. They saw it that I was trying to fix a problem and
Mhm.
not benefit me. And it didn't benefit me in any way. I could have done it, but I didn't. I wanted to benefit everyone else to not have to go through what we went through.
Oh, definitely. It's just these parents, you know, they want things done like now. Like they go into a courtroom thinking, "Oh, the judge is gonna be doing the right thing," because that's what we were taught when we were kids. And then we get in there and this is a different ball game.
Yes. Whenever you, okay, so if you're going through a false allegation, here's another tip too. Don't ever rush into court. I did that several times thinking, okay, I'm going to get in there, tell the judge that this is BS, whatever. If there's an open CPS investigation against you or district attorney's office or anyone else, do not go into court, because there's no judge that's going to give you your children back when there's an open investigation. I wasted tens of thousands of dollars making my attorney get in there to get in front of the judge just to be told that there's still an open investigation. We can't do anything. Save your money. Narrow that to your child.
Mhm. But there are times when this is happening and you're being hauled into family court by a personality disorder that does not know when to quit. And even though you have an open investigation, they're going to run you through the mill. Then what does
Right.
a parent, how do we stop this?
So we're putting that, like my bill, you have to come up with bills that stop this stuff before it starts. So my bill actually stops the behavior before it starts. Same thing with this other interference with child custody thing in Texas. One just passed in Texas. Claudia Valles did it, and I think you've had her on.
Yep.
That it's a $0 to $500 fine if someone interferes with child custody. It's a great bill. The problem is you have to get it adopted in each city. But if that goes on a national, or even in your state or anybody else's state, if you can adopt that same bill, but only do it at a set fine, so make it a $500 fine or a $1,000 fine for each instance, whatever it is, and take that language and say shall instead of may, your state, it'll go statewide immediately. Now, I've already talked to a lot of police stations about this, and they want the bill. In fact, it's the only tool that they said that they have with this bill that passes that they can use to correct this behavior. And any other, all law enforcement don't have any kind of tool, but with this bill, it would be the first tool that law enforcement has to correct that behavior. If they can correct that, it will stop a lot of the alienation, because the alienation only can stick is if you go long periods of time without seeing your child.
Right.
So with that law by itself will stop where it starts. Same thing with false allegation, the time taken, time back bill. If you have these two bills are some of the strongest bills. Now, if you add a third one on top of it, which my state senator and I are going to do, is a new start at equality. Those three things, if you can get in your state, will stop these games almost immediately. Now, it's not going to stop the crazies. Nothing's going to stop the crazies, okay? So, but it'll stop all of the behaviors before they start, and it'll stop a lot of the alienation before, and hopefully we'll have a strong nation. You can't have a strong nation without having strong families.
Right. These courts are crooked. I mean, I won't keep you all morning, but parents are walking into these rigged cases. Mine was totally rigged. Everybody knows my story. But when you've got a personality disorder that just does not know when to stop, and they're surrounded by other personality disorders that are encouraging them to do this and that, and their attorney is a perpetual liar personality disorder, really, you don't stand a chance at ever winning. What does one do?
You do. I thought about, all of us have thought about giving up. We've all had these thoughts in our head about all kinds of stuff. Do not follow through with any of them, right? Don't quit.
Right.
Don't harm somebody. Don't do it. Make your intentions like God is watching all the time. Don't do it for revenge. Don't
Right.
do it to run up the tab. Don't do it for all these things. If your heart is in the right place, eventually you're going to get justice, whether it's in this world or the next. And
Right.
they will be judged. All these judges that are doing this will be judged also by by God.
Oh,
And so
definitely.
they will be judged on what they were doing here on earth. So
Oh, I agree, and I can tell you a quick judge story. Um, the judge took my kids away March 2nd of 2015, and I was saying, "Dear God, I don't know what to do with this guy." We can't recuse him. My female attorney asked, we've done this, this, and this. Why can't we go back to 50-50? And he stated, I have my reasons. And she goes, Your Honor, but we've done this. What are your reasons? And he just said, I have my reasons. So it's like, there's nothing we can do. So I was just praying to God, what you deal with them, dear God. So I get a phone call on March 2nd of 2017 from my friend, and she said, Hey, did you see the news? I said, No, your judge died. It's like, really? That's how God dealt with him. On the same date, he took my kids away. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, God
On
works
the
in
same day.
mysterious ways. Yeah. I mean, God works in
Uh,
mysterious ways, but God does take care of these individuals. He's
There's
watching.
there's repercussions for everything that you do or anybody else does to you. And we're all children of God.
Right.
And think of it like a parent and two kids fighting. Eventually, something's going to happen. That parent's going to get tired of whatever's going on. So there's repercussions for everything,
Mhm.
and judgment will come to judges and anyone playing these games with God's children, because you're not messing with just God's children themselves, us as parents. You're messing with those children, and it's generational chains that are gonna, if you're alienating one, then it's gonna perpetuate unless
Mhm.
somebody sees the behavior and stops it. And so, but I think with these new laws that were being passed, I think it will change the behaviors of generations to come. And I always tell people this too: if you're going to make a law, make it so beautiful that nobody can oppose it.
Right.
So when you're thinking about doing other laws in your states, make it really pretty where nobody can oppose it. And you can adopt other laws. So like my time taken, time back bill, if you want it in your state, I'll be more than happy to give it to you. I'll talk to your state legislators. I'll even do Zoom. I'll even come to your meetings with the state legislators. I am trying to get this on a national level. I talked to Ted Cruz, John Cornyn's office, and they said because they're violating your constitutional rights, I
Mhm.
can't actually take this on a national level, and it'll go in all 50 states. But they need several states to have it going through their council, through their legislative sessions, for them to be able to say, okay, I understand this bill's great because all these others, these states are doing it by themselves. Let's just adopt it and be done.
Mhm.
And so that's what I need. I need other people to carry this time taken, time back bill. Now, if you're going to do it, only do it for the bill itself. Don't attach it to other things. Don't amend it. Don't do all kinds of, okay, we're going to put false allegations in here. We're going to put a fine in there for the
Right.
person. It will not pass.
Yeah, don't
Any
muddy it.
don't do it. It's already pretty imperfect. So if you give it to your state legislator or your House rep like it is, and tell them that it passed bipartisan and unanimous through Texas the first time, every state legislator or House rep will take it because they want a bill. They want to get more bills under their belt to pass. And especially if it's a good bill or an amazing bill, this bill will pass standing alone on any state legislator's docket.
Mhm. Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. How can people reach you if they have any questions?
Yeah. I don't do a lot of social media other than Facebook. So Facebook, you could look up my name, Robert Garza. Um, I'm on it. And if people put on there to call me or comment or something, I just had a phone call with someone at 6 o'clock this morning. He was
Mhm.
just like, I'm surprised you called me. I was like, look, I went through this the same as you. I wish when I was in a dark place that I would have someone respond to me, anyone, especially knew what I was going through. Oh, the other thing is, I don't know if you've done anything about this, but so there's a documentary called We the Parents,
Mhm.
and it's an amazing documentary. And it shows about 5 or 6 families that have gone through family court, even attorneys, women, men, everything. It's on YouTube. It's free. Just Google We the Parents and it'll
Mhm.
come up. But that's an amazing documentary. I'm in it, and several other people. So,
Oh, that's great. That's great. I'm so glad I had you on. This was a fascinating conversation, and I would love to have you come back on.
yeah, of course.
And I'm very happy and pleased that you will be in my upcoming book as well. So, is there anything else you'd like to add? Any other encouraging advice you'd want to give a parent going through this?
Just that, don't give up. They're your children. Eventually, the other person will give up. They'll run out of money. They'll run out of time unless they're crazy and have a lot of money. But don't ever give up on your children. Always post on your Facebook. If something happens to you right now, then the only thing your child has is whatever the alienating parent's going to tell them.
Mhm,
So there's time hops on your Facebook pages, make them public, post stuff about your kids. This was us 5 years ago, because you're
mhm.
leaving an album of them and little tiny breadcrumbs for them to see that you did fight for them, that you did try everything, and that you were a loving parent, and you did have a great relationship at any point, in your life with
Mhm.
them, and that all you want to do is just be a parent. Oh,
Right.
one more thing. So in family court, and this is a big one too,
Okay.
in family court, if you are a joint managing conservator, that means the court has already said that you are a fit parent. If you're a joint managing conservator, the court has already awarded you that you're a fit parent. So for them to go back and say that you're not a fit parent at any point without any proof, you can tell them that they've already awarded you as a fit parent because you're a joint managing conservator.
Now, back up, how do you get into that area of is this
Yeah. So it's just if that ever comes up. So if there's anything, let's just say you have other kids too. And because a lot of these families have multiple kids, whatever. So if a court has already awarded you joint managing conservator with somebody and you're parenting somebody, and even if they're the primary parent and you're the other parent, you're still considered a joint managing conservator in that. And if any court has awarded you that, that means they found you to be fit, because nobody is going to award you joint conservatorship without being a fit parent. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Later on, a lot of people that are in this are going to understand it, but if any point you're a joint managing conservator, you are already a fit parent, that
Mhm.
the court sees you as a fit parent. So for them to say that you're not a fit parent and you're a joint managing conservator based on false allegations or whatever else, you can bring that up and just say, look, I am a joint managing conservator. You've already told me I'm a fit parent. You've already acknowledged I was a fit parent by putting joint managing conservator, and so did your ex.
Mhm.
Your ex, if she signed that decree at any point and then tries to go back on it and says that you're not a fit parent, she already signed saying you are a fit parent, and so did that court.
Mhm.
Just have that in your arsenal. It'll be a good argument for somebody.
Right, and I also encourage if you're getting hauled into this, go get your psych eval first and have that in your arsenal as well, because they're gonna ask for that anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do. I took even going through this without the court saying anything, I went and found all the parenting classes I could take online. I got certificates for all that when all this stuff started, and I was able to go in and tell the judge, say, look, judge, you didn't order any of this. She keeps saying I'm not a fit parent or whatever. I even took parenting classes. I took all these classes without you even asking. Here's my certificates. They were pretty impressed, but because of the allegations, they kept going. They couldn't do anything about it. But like I said, I went through 43 silver bullets. I
Oh,
mean, I was never arrested, never convicted, never anything, by the grace of God.
mm,
But, I know a lot of people that do go through these things and one silver bullet and they're done. So,
right. Well,
yeah, but,
totally oh, go ahead.
just hang in there. Like, do
Yes.
not give up on your children. Fight as much as you can. And I understand. Do not, if you have to bow out, I get it. And so does everybody else. This is about to be well known with like this We the Parents documentary and a bunch of these documentaries coming out and all of the advocacy everyone's doing. Some people cannot handle it, and I don't, and I understand it, and so does everybody else.
Mhm.
When you take away someone's child, you're grieving the loss of a living child.
Mhm.
It's like they died every day, and you're grieving that death because you can't talk to them, you can't see them, you don't know what's going on with them. We understand what that loss is, but just know that you can get through it, and you have to be in a mental state and okay. So surround yourself with friends and family or advocates or other things, but don't isolate yourself. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
There is, and just keep going. And one of my sayings is that, advocacy, sometimes chooses you, whether you like it or not.
Yes. There was a higher purpose. While I was going through this, I was like, God, why am I going through this?
Right.
Like, I mean, I worked so hard to build this beautiful life with these kids, and then now it's just like destroyed. And now, after the bill passed, I understand why I had to go through it to affect millions of people on a national level. And I'm still going through it, right? I mean, still going through things and figuring out more stuff. But I think it was, you're here to serve people on this earth. And if that's my purpose here, then that's my purpose. And all I did was I turned my pain into purpose. And if you're going through this, if you can find some way to turn your pain into purpose, then and get behind some of these groups or some of these advocates that are doing things, do it, and it will help fuel your fire and your pain and get you through that next day.
Excellent advice. Excellent. And I want you back on.
Okay.
Don't jump off. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I am your host, Mary Ann Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth, and Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children. Join us again in the future with Robert Garza and other exciting guests. And I totally thank you for your time, Robert Garza. Totally appreciate you.
Thank you.